Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing great by the grace and mercy of our Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you very much for choosing to watch this video. Now, I know you have heard and watched and listened to so many health testimonies, some of which you might believe, and I know some of which you might not believe that it is true. But I want you to listen to this message and then tell me what you think. This health testimony is quite different from many others that have been brought out for us to, listen to. And there's something about this message which talks about our Christian faith and then our salvation. There are certain differences that we need to know so that we do not make a mistake or being deceived by some doctrines, which is actually taking so many Christians to the wrong path. Now, this woman in question that I'm about to share her testimony with you suffered a stage 4 heart disease. And during her time in the hospital, she lost everything, and then she was taken out of the physical realm to the spiritual realm where she ended up being in hell. Now, during her time in hell, through the mercy of God, she was shown two people, that is her elder brother and a famous scientist. Now, with her elder brother, based on the information she gave, this man was actually a man of God before he died. That means that he had received salvation, because he can never be a pastor without salvation. So the question here is, how then did he end up in hell after he had received salvation? This is what I want you to listen to and know how he ended up in the pit of hell, even though he had received salvation. Now, after meeting her brother, she was also shown a famous scientist called Stephen Hawking, which I know probably you might heard of him or know who he is and what he has done as a scientist in the world before he passed out. Now, this scientist brought out a message which every atheist or scientist must hear. This is not a joke. If you are living in the world and you believe that there is no God, there's no existence of hell or heaven, you need to be careful, because you will definitely be deceived till the time of your death. After you have died, that is where you will get to know that truly, there's a place called hell and there's a place called heaven, and the need for you to seek salvation in Jesus Christ. Live a holy and a clean life so that you do not end up in a place that you do not want to be. So I want you to seek discernment on this message that you're about to listen to, because it is very sensitive. Pray to God for God to give you a confirmation of the truth of this message. And then also make sure that you listen and apply the instructions that were given. Now, this woman sent in her message in the form of a story. So I had to let one of my team members read out her message in the form of an audio. And that is what I'm going to play out to you. Now, before I play out, I just want to quickly say this. By the grace of God, on the 28th of this month, we are going to host our evangelism crusade in South Africa. Now, I just want to let you know so that you can support us in prayer wherever you are in the world. I want you to support Great Miracles Avenue evangelism team in South Africa as they are about to embark on this event, so that the Lord will give them the courage and the strength to go out there to preach the gospel on the 28th of September, so that we can win souls for God. So we need your prayer in these times. Now, if you have Bibles, if you have gospel tracts that you want to give to us so that we can share with the people that we're going to spread the message with, that is going to be fantastic, and God is going to bless you. If you're in South Africa and you would want to volunteer, also just send in your details, and then we're going to pray with you and add you up to the team. God bless you wherever you are, and thank you.
Great Miracle Avenue. I came across your channel about 2 months ago, and my conviction never wavers to subscribe to your channel, because when I checked other videos on the channel, I have enough reason to believe what God is doing in this generation through your channel. My name is Sophia. I had this experience in the second week of April 2022. I saw Hawking Stephen and my own brother in hell, and he gave out certain words of confession in the depth of his torments. Personally, I knew there are moments in life when the weight of mortality presses down on us, reminding us of the nature of our existence. I always thought that I'd live long enough to see my grandchildren, share stories with them, and watch the world change slowly, but my health had other plans. It began as mere discomfort, a dull ache in my chest, shortness of breath when I climbed the stairs, and unshakable fatigue that clung to my bones. I had always been active, vibrant, and full of energy, so this slow degeneration of my body caught me off guard. When I went to the hospital and was diagnosed, the doctor revealed to me that I was diagnosed with stage 4 heart disease. He said quietly, along with kidney failure. We can try treatments, but the prognosis isn't good. My heart sank deeper than the disease could reach. It felt like a cruel sentence, one that I couldn't escape from no matter how hard I fought. Months went by as I endured treatment, medications, and visits to specialists. At the time, I was living with my grandson who was only 21 years old, but their presence didn't lessen the inevitability that loomed ahead. It became clear that my days were numbered. I felt myself slipping closer to an invisible threshold where my body would no longer sustain me. One evening, as I lay in my bed, struggling to breathe, I felt a strange calm wash over me. My heart had been working overtime for far too long, and now it had reached its limit. A sharp pain shot through my chest, and then the air seemed too thick for my lungs to grasp, and my heart slowed until I could barely feel it. My vision blurred, and the sounds of the hospital room, the beeping machines, and the nurses talking in hushed tones all faded into nothingness. Then, silence. I was weightless. I opened my eyes and saw myself lying on the bed. My body looked lifeless, but I was no longer bound to it. I was watching my body from above, realizing that I was no longer a part of it. I floated gently, rising towards the ceiling of the room, as if I was being drawn by an invincible force. For a moment, I felt at peace, as though I had transcended the pain and suffering that had ravaged my body. But the peace didn't last long. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pull. It was as if an invincible hand had lashed onto me. Before I could process what was happening, I was yanked downward with terrifying speed. The hospital faded away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of heat and darkness. I felt like I was falling through an endless pit. My soul was dragged towards something far more evil. When I finally stopped falling, I found myself standing in hell. I looked around, horrified at what I saw. Souls were everywhere. They were tormented in ways that defied human anatomy. They cried in torment, their bodies bound by chains, some being torn apart with no faces, only gaping mouths that seemed to devour the very essence of those unfortunate enough to be near them. One soul was bound to a burning wheel, spinning endlessly in circles, its flesh searing and healing over and over again in a cycle. Another was trapped in a lake of fire, trying desperately to crawl out, only to be dragged back in by skeletal hands that reached out from the depths. Each soul had its unique torment, yet they all cried out for the same thing: mercy. I must say that hell is a place of darkness, filled with the cries of the damned and thick flames in distance. Yet, during all the terrible moments, there was clarity in my vision. Shadows danced, yet I could see them with crystal precision. That's when I saw him, my older brother. Amongst my siblings, he was the one I truly loved. He was very good to me. He stood there almost unrecognizable in the crowd of suffering souls. My brother, who had been a pastor all his life and who had led countless sermons about salvation and righteousness, was here in hell. How could this be? I stammered, approaching him. He looked at me with very regretful eyes. His once confident carriage, the one I had known all my life, was gone. He revealed to me that even without asking him, he let me know that in all his role as a pastor, he was secretly having sexual affairs with his church members. He allowed the devil to deceive him into sleeping with some of the female in his church. He was a hypocrite, consumed by pride, and on many occasions, he had this urge to personally confess his sins to Jesus, but pride and lust never allowed him. Even though he had preached to others repentance, yet he couldn't repent himself, and now he was paying the price. At that moment, I was taken into a very deep thought of understanding that you can't receive salvation and continue to sin. My brother was a pastor, like I said. He received salvation in the Lord and started his ministry when I was very young. But because he had defiled his marriage by committing adultery and also had sexual immoral affairs with ladies in his church, he couldn't go to heaven after he died. I felt a crushing sorrow for him, but before I could process everything, a voice interrupted us. The voice was very near to where I stood, but when I turned to watch who was speaking, couldn't see that his image was very far from me, but yet I could see who he was. Though I had never met him in life, I knew it was Stephen Hawking. The part of hell he was in was so excruciating. People in that section suffered more than anyone. I had known Stephen to be a brilliant scientist whose theories on the universe have fascinated millions. He seemed as out of place here as my brother did. Just like my brother, who began to confess without me asking a single question, Stephen Hawking turned to me with an expression I couldn't quite read. He confessed that he used to think that the universe was a product of pure chance and that science could explain everything. But what he didn't realize was that science was a tool of the devil, a way to deceive people into thinking that there is no God. I was wrong, so wrong, he confessed. I stood there speechless. He told me that his understanding of the world had been twisted, that the pursuit of knowledge without faith had led him and perhaps many others astray. This was what he told me before he was dragged into the thick magma of hell. I quote, "Tell the world that they must find Jesus. Science without God is dangerous. It blinds people to the truth. They need to seek salvation before it is too late." His words struck me deeply. This man who has spent his entire life exploring the mysteries of the universe was now warning me that none of it mattered without faith. After saying all these, he tried to utter another word, but he was dragged away into the depth of hell. Time in hell was eternal, but I knew my moment there was fleeting. As I listened to both my elder brother's regrets and Hawkins' desperate plea, a sense of urgency filled my heart there. They were warning me not just for myself, but for the world. The knowledge they shared had to be taken seriously. Suddenly, I felt myself being pulled away from the torment of hell, the shadows and the despair. My body jerked back to consciousness, and I found myself lying in the hospital bed. Nurses rushed around me, astonished by my sudden revival, but my mind wasn't on them. It was on the message I had been given. I had seen hell, spoken with souls trapped there, and had been given a second chance. I would tell the world the truth that salvation is real, and it is urgent. We could no longer hide behind science and reason alone. The time to find faith is now. Life and death are not as separate as we think. My journey beyond has shown me that there is a reality beyond our earthly existence, one where the choices we make now will speak forever. Science may offer us answers about the physical world, but without faith, it leaves us vulnerable to deception. Please, whoever is listening to my message, if you haven't sought salvation in Jesus, please do that before it is too late. Also, if you have already received salvation, then please stay away from sin. Don't be deceived that you have received salvation so you can continue to sin and go to heaven. This is a complete lie. Seek discernment and test the spirit of my message. Thank you.